Next slide, please. The past 3 years have been quite the journey for Harlem Township. In late 2021, the township, with the assistance of the Delaware County Regional Planning Commission, completed a comprehensive plan focusing on large lot rural developments with some neighborhood commercial at key locations. While the township was already feeling the stresses of development pressure, the announcement of Intel in January 2022 exacerbated these development pressures, causing the township to quickly shift gears. So again, they've had to shift, even back then, a year ago, they had to shift from what they were originally thinking. The township understood that large lot rural development was no longer a viable option. A strategic planning committee was formed in February of 2022, and the township hired our firm to assist with developing a quick strategy guide, which was approved by the trustees in March of 2023. The guide does not replace the township's 2021 plan, but rather is a supplement to that document. Both the 2021 comprehensive plan and the 2023 quick strategy guide have the same overarching vision of protecting the rural character. During the development of the guide, we held a series of community meetings to educate residents on the importance for preparing for development rather than letting development happen to the township, and how the rural character can be retained through these planning efforts. Next slide, please. Since the adoption of the quick strategy guide, the township has successfully completed several of the recommendations within the plan. Several subcommittees were created to divide and conquer the work. For example, a developer subcommittee meets with developers to explain the township's vision and to ensure the developers understand that vision. The developer subcommittee also meets with landowners to understand their plans and educate them on the evolving conditions within the township. Another example is the infrastructure subcommittee. They have been meeting frequently with utility providers such as water and sewer and roadway authorities, including the county engineer and ODOT. This group has also played a role in understanding AEP's plans for the future transmission line and has served as an advocate for the township's vision while AEP was determining the alignment of these future lines. There's also a communications subcommittee, and this committee has been instrumental in providing frequent updates to township residents through email, township website, and social media. The ability to communicate on a more frequent basis has been made possible through the collection of over 450 township resident email addresses. We have done that through all of our different meetings we've held over the last year or so, getting those email addresses. And we've had 400 up until last week, and I believe we collected another 150 in addition to those last week. Next slide, please. Finally, the township as a whole has been successful in creating several overlay districts. Zoning is extremely important to the township's vision. As you can see in this slide, the township has adopted 3 overlay districts ranging from clustered residential to employment-based districts, all with design standards that reflect the rural vision of the township. In 2023, we held a series of community meetings to help educate residents on the threats of annexation and the need for these overlay zoning districts to help reduce the likelihood of landowners seeking annexation into a community with zoning that does not reflect the vision of the township. Tonight, I will reiterate that there are 2 main reasons landowners seek annexation. The first is to access zoning that increases the density and intensity of uses. The second is utilities. With the adoption of these overlays, the township has set the stage for the zoning, but we'll talk about utilities in a moment. Next slide, please. The township has made great strides since adopting the quick strategy guide a year ago, but there is still more work to be done. The guide calls for the need for an east-west connector, identifying priority sewer line locations, a township-wide stormwater management plan, and key park and bikeway connections. Each of these are controlled by various states and county agencies, requiring coordination among many to create a comprehensive approach to these planning efforts. Additionally, as we discussed in our 2023 community meetings, townships have limited ability to raise revenue to cover increased infrastructure, emergency, and administrative service costs. The quick strategy guide recommends the township identify a strategic partner, a municipality, to allow the township to generate funds for the long-term financial stability of the community. The guide recommends utilizing joint economic development districts, new community authorities, and tax increment finance districts with the strategic partner to help generate the necessary revenue to offset these rising costs. Next slide, please. While JEDs, NCAs, and TIFs can help generate these funds, they only work when utilities are available. While the sewer is still expected to be in Harlem Township by 2026, the infrastructure subcommittee over the last 12 months has found that water and sewer are not following as quickly as anticipated. Water and electric, sorry, not sewer. These increases the threat of annexation by municipalities that can provide these utilities. Next slide, please. In addition, in recent news, as recent as January 30th and again on February 18th, the Columbus Dispatch reported on a study completed by the Central Ohio Building Industry of Ohio, the BIA. This study addresses the housing crisis in Columbus. This study recommends eliminating zoning from non-limited home rule townships, such as Harlem Township, and pushing zoning to the county level. The study conducted by the BIA includes other recommendations such as eliminating referendums, as well as other policy changes. While Harlem Township does not expect its zoning to be taken away in the near future, it is a real threat and something to keep an eye on. It is also important to note that a municipality zoning would not be affected by the recommendations in this plan. Under the recommendations in this study, municipalities would retain their ability to zone within their borders. Next slide, please. You may recall this map from the 2023 community meetings showing the 5, 10, and 15-minute drive times from Intel in New Albany to the surrounding areas. That map is actually also out in the hallway. We also brought tonight a map that shows how Chandler grew in Arizona. So both of those maps are out in the hallway for you to look at. The majority of Harlem Township is within a 15-minute drive from the Intel site in New Albany. If you recall in those meetings, we discussed Chandler, Arizona, and what happened there after Intel built its first plant in that community. The entire area within the 15-minute drive time was developed within 10 years of the plant's opening. We are within 15-minute drive time of the New Albany site. We stated in 2023 that we anticipated a similar growth pattern once utilities are available. We are now 2 years from the Intel announcement, but our 10-year clock has not started ticking yet because the utilities are not available. So just because you don't see the bulldozers right outside right now in Harlem Township, it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. The rapid growth is still going to come. It's just delayed until the infrastructure is ready. This map also illustrates how Harlem Township is surrounded on 4 sides by various communities that can provide utilities. The map out in the hallway also shows how sewer is coming towards Harlem Township in 3 different directions. This is a unique situation that has played a role in the township's decision on a strategic partner. Next slide, please. So how did the township choose its strategic partner? It started by reviewing its neighboring communities and asking the same questions for each community. What services can it provide? What amenities can it provide? What is its vision? Ultimately, the township's main goals were to find a partner that both align with its vision and can provide the infrastructure that protects the township from annexation. Westerville checks all these boxes. They have a similar vision, they have their own water service, and they have their own electric service. Next slide. So the township approached Westerville. Want to be clear that the conversation did not start out about a merger. The question that was asked of Westerville was, will you create a joint economic development district with us? While a JED would provide some protection to portions of the township's borders, it would be a piecemeal approach, leaving several areas exposed to annexation by others. The township was extremely concerned about these exposed areas, and the conversation started to expand to discuss a more comprehensive approach to protecting the township's vision, which led to the merger discussion. A merger would be a township-wide approach to water and sewer services and protect all 4 borders from future annexation from other municipalities that do not share the township's vision. Additionally, the city could provide public safety services to the entire township, and residents could have access to a variety of amenities, including the Westerville Community Center and senior services for a reduced rate. Next slide, please. The township wants to ensure that everyone understands that a merger is not an annexation. Annexation is a property owner initiative on a case-by-case piecemeal approach. When a property is annexed into a municipality, the township loses all control over the uses, design, and development standards for future growth. A merger is a township and city initiative to incorporate the entire township into a municipality. In addition to being a comprehensive approach, it gives the township a seat at the table to negotiate its terms and conditions for merging. In this particular case, the Strategic Planning Committee has made it clear that retaining township zoning standards will be a requirement for any merger agreement. Remember, zoning is very important to retaining the rural character of this community, and with our preliminary discussion, Westerville shares this vision. Next slide, please. A merger also switches the township from playing defense to playing offense. It gives us time to plan because it removes the threat of annexation from other communities. Additionally, Westerville has the capacity to conduct a comprehensive design process under one umbrella to complete the unfinished recommendations of the quick strategy guide. If you remember back to the slide with the unfinished items, they were all things like township-wide stormwater plan, parks and bikeway connections. Those, as I mentioned in that slide, are all right now in silos by different counties and park districts and different agencies. But bringing them into the city of Westerville creates it under one design process. This comprehensive design process would take place after a merger is approved, but residents from the current township would have a seat at the table to help guide the outcome of the work. Next slide, please. There are many benefits to a merger, some of which we've already discussed. The Strategic Planning Committee believes that retaining its zoning and protecting its heritage are at the heart of exploring a merger. The combined interest from both communities to explore a merger is just the beginning. If you go to the next slide, please. Nothing is set in stone at this time. We are simply exploring the potential to merge, and these are the benefits the township has identified at this point in time. We still have work to do. We have work to find out what are the additional benefits, what are some negatives. We have work to do. Go to the next slide. There are many benefits to a merger. Some of what are first step in this process will be for both communities to pass legislation to discuss the intent to merge. We anticipate the trustees considering this legislation at its March meeting. Once this legislation is adopted, there will be up to 120-day negotiation process that takes place to create a merger agreement. Go to the next slide, please. If negotiations are successful, we anticipate a merger agreement being finalized in time to be placed on the November 2024 ballot for a vote by both the township and city residents. The merger must be approved by a simple majority of voters in both the city and the township. If it is approved by the voters, the date of the merger would be January 1st, 2025. And if you could just flip through the next slide. And then if we go to the next slide, that would be great. We know that there are a lot of questions and mixed emotions about last week's announcement. The township and the city have developed a frequently asked questions document that's available for you to take home tonight. It looks like this, and hopefully you all can pick one up on your way in. We have developed a website that has some additional information on it. The website address is on this slide on the screen. And the website will be updated periodically as the process evolves. So tonight, the Strategic Planning Committee is available to hear your initial thoughts and answer your questions. Of course, we want to make sure everyone is heard and that all questions are answered. So to accomplish this, we need to ensure that we follow some basic ground rules. Steve already mentioned, please ask one question. If you have more than one question, that's fine, but please return to the end of the line so that everybody has an opportunity to get their questions asked. If you don't want to come to the mic and ask a question, you can fill out a note card. Molly, Ben, and George are all going around in the, I think Molly and Ben are in the hallway, George is up here. They're going to be going around with note cards. You can write your question on the note card and give it back to them. And then we'll answer those questions in between people at the mic. Again, these guidelines are put in place to ensure everyone has an opportunity to be heard. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Steve to facilitate the questions.
So while you're getting your questions, I've got just one additional comment to make. There's a lot of questions that we get about the timeline, and some opinions are it's very short, others just don't know what it is. So I'm going to give you the layman's view of what's going to happen between now and November election day. And this is also in the FAQ handout. But in fact, last night, Westerville City Council met for the first time considering the ordinance, as they would call it, to consider a merger with Harlem Township. And the council heard a brief overview of that and then took some community comments and questions. And so that was step one of a 3-step process that the city has. So about every other week, they have a council meeting, they'll have a second reading and then a third reading. I think it's around the 2nd of April. And at that point, what they are then voting on within the council is to advance their view of the ordinance to move forward into a negotiation to build an agreement with Harlem. Our side of that equation is on March 20th. It's a little simpler. On March 20th, the Harlem trustees will meet in their normal trustees meeting. And at that time, they will be looking at a resolution to advance the discussion and agree to advance the discussion further to move into a negotiation phase with Westerville. No decisions have been made at that point, just moving the process along. So after, so the long tent pole is Westerville. So once they get that done by about April 2nd, that kicks off the 120-day clock that Holly mentioned that is part of the Ohio Revised Code as to how these things have to be run.
Yeah.
And so through that period of time, there will be a multitude of engagements with the community, and we will be having more engagements with you long before that. But that's the negotiation phase that takes place between the two entities to, in the end, come up with a proposed agreement. That agreement by around Memorial Day, just before that, is what again comes back to both the Harlem trustees as well as goes to the Westerville Council for voting. And if both of those groups agree and say yes to the agreement, that's what moves it forward onto the final step of advancing the ordinances to the Delaware and the Franklin County Board of Elections, which is the process to get it on the November ballot. And so then the third vote, so we've got the resolution, we've got the votes at the end of the agreement at each council and trustees, and then finally you get to say. So that's the final step in the process. So that's how this will unfold, and it can be stopped along the way if either entity feels that we're just not making progress or it's just not going to work out for us. But we're way too early in the process right now to play that card, and we have a lot, as I said at the outset, a lot of education here, both on our part as well as for all of you to understand what we're talking about. So, having made that speech, we're ready for the first question. So, again, please come up to the mic, ask your question, one question at a time, and then get back in line for another question here. Please give us your name and your address. And before we do that, just a show of hands, because we didn't do this the last time. How many people in the room are residents of Harlem Township? No, pretty much all. That wasn't the case last Wednesday or last Thursday. It was about 30% others, as we can see from the signage. Okay, sir, please fire away.
Good evening, Steve. My name is Robert Hearn, live at 5625 Harlem Road, right down the street here for over 23 years. Last Thursday morning and last Thursday evening, you spoke about that you've done nothing nefarious. My question to you is, when was the first engagement with the city of Westerville? And along with that, do you have notes from that meeting?
Pardon?
Do you have notes from that meeting?
No, we don't have.
Okay, by ORC law,
We are not a legal entity. We are an advisory committee to the township. Therefore, it does not fall under ORC law. You can ask the Delaware County prosecutor. So that's a different story. We are citizens, we are volunteers. We met in most instances in totally open meetings. But in the planning, once we came to the conclusion that there might be something to do further with Westerville, we did workshops in order to get us to the case, to the point that we built and did our due diligence to advance it to the trustees for them to say, okay, let's take it to the next step.
Okay, sir, you're listed as a strategic planning committee, correct? No, you're listed as a strategic planning committee, correct?
We are the Strategic Planning Committee of Harlem Township, which is an advisory organization, not.
Okay, I would ask anybody in this room right now to take down Ohio Revised Code 121.22. Look it up and then look up the OMA, Open Meetings Act.
Okay,
State of Ohio.
next question, please. Thank you.
I'm Doug Reed from 3034 Expansion. I just want to give my initial take and have a question for you out of that. The argument that we need to block the piecemeal annexation makes a lot of sense to me. You guys have been going down that path for a while, and I understand it's a difficult thing. The way that the services issue plays into that, though, it seems like it's getting a little fuzzy. If the zoning restrictions are relaxed, whether through annexation starting to nibble away, or by a merger with Westerville, which starts to introduce smaller lot sizes, that's gonna accelerate the pressure on the services. So there are other options as a Harlem Township resident that look a lot better aligned to me than Westerville. I know what Westerville looks like. It doesn't look like Harlem Township. I lived there for a long time. So, you know, there are other options that are all in Delaware County. There are other options that are all Walnut schools, right? There are other options that actually are rural. So when you say that Westerville shares our vision, I've got serious question marks about that. The fact that there's a fixed time at which the zoning will be held and then it will relapse. I mean, what I think honestly we're looking at is eventually we're gonna be Westerville. We'll have bike trails, we'll have parks, and we'll have high density housing, and this whole services issue will be greatly accelerated based on that. So my question is, what can we, Harlem Township residents, if a majority of us feel this way, is there anything we could do to just say, hey, put a pause on this thing? And let's do a deeper dive on these alternative options for a while, because my fear is that once the timeline gets moving and the agreement's signed, there's gonna be a lot of powerful interests wanting to see that vote go a certain way. The funding on the advertising is gonna be very one-sided, I'm afraid, and this thing's just gonna take on a momentum. And by the way, I have started a Facebook group for those who want to debate this as a resident called Harlem Becomes Westerville ?
Okay, thank you.
If I guess my biggest question that I'm gonna ask the residents, you asked the question. What would be the time frame? What is, you know, I keep hearing, I've heard the little blurb about, you know, rights. Do we set back and wait and see what happens? This
My
is
take
not.
would be a more proactive engagement with Sunbury, Galena, Johnstown, and incorporating here, like.
Yeah, and I need to chime in here because the sewer is coming from the south and it's coming from the city of Columbus and it's going to be serviced by Delaware County. So whether we merge with a Sunbury, we merge with Galena, the sewer is coming no matter what. And that if you try to retain 2-acre, 5-acre lots where the sewer is available, that is going to be considered unconstitutional and be shot down in the courts.
But why?
Because it's considered a taking of your property because you can't develop it to the density that is provided by the sewers. So where the sewers are coming, yeah.
People moved there and bought their land under the zoning.
Zoning changes, sorry, I'm looking at it.
Zoning can be changed, as you know. And as I said, the last meeting, the last couple of meetings, look at the current things that are going on at the State House, much higher than any of us even want to think about. What's going on at the State House, the legislation that has currently been introduced by builders with big dollars, because this giant that's happening not too far from here, and the lack of housing, where they want to remove the 2 feet that you as a township have. Zoning and the right to referendum. And if they take those away and give that, we have nothing. This whole thing, this whole.
We're merging with Sunbury, for example.
Okay, I was gonna go, this got wrong. I was gonna go, we talked as we were going through this process. We spoke with other municipalities. I was given a bit of a mandate through different conversations with different residents of things that were a breaking point. Do not pass them. And if those other municipalities did not meet any of those, this committee was told to walk.
By who?
They they would go five, I'm sorry,
A lot of residents feel that.
yeah. Yeah, I can only go by what is presented to me.
I was gonna say, the only short thing I was going to add is that if you think that zoning can stop, development, I would say, look at Orange Township. I'm sure that 30 years ago was probably rural, and what is it now? So if zoning could stop development, there would be many communities that started out rural that would stop development because of their zoning. So that's all I have.
Just saying, merging the city is valid or incorporate to stop the piecemeal annexation, right? Removing the zone. But which city or why not incorporate ourselves, I think needs a deeper dive because I have a bad feeling about the Westerville.
Please, next question.
My name is Michael Jones. I'm Jones Builders. I've been a home builder and an office builder in Westerville and Delaware County for since 1985. I've been very active in the city of Westerville, and I've seen their growth and very active in following their government. I'm in Rotary. I have been for close to 30 years, and I live on Covan Drive currently. The reason I live on Covan is because I lived in the city of Westerville, and it's just too out of control. When you write in an article here that Westerville has a proven history of prioritizing smart plan growth and successful management, I assume you're talking about the 9/11 annexation, and that was a boondoggle. They acquired that land from Dick Soloff in the heart of the Depression, and they sat on it for a number of years, and they could never make it work. And it ended up costing the city of Westerville's taxpayers another 0.5% income tax to pay for their misdeeds. And at the end of it, in like 2019 or 20, when they did start selling land, they were selling land for $185,000 an acre, which in Columbus, a mile away, would have been 400 or 500,000. They were giving it away, and the reason they were doing that was to get more tax base for the city employees. And talking about the employees, the fire department in Westerville has a fire department within a mile of the township fire department that they merged. And then they have two other fire departments in town, all have $15 million hook and ladder trucks that sit there and get polished every day. They have numerous employees that are overemployed. And then you get the city of Westerville schools, which I have been a part of for many years. I actually coached at Westerville North, and I'm in the schools all the time. You've got gym teachers making $150,000. That's not our township. What we need to do is we need to get the wine out here. He brought this and laid it in our laps. We need for him to create a picture frame around our townships, all these little other municipalities, and say, okay, these are special areas. If he can close down the state with COVID, he can do this. He needs to come in and stop the sewer lines right now, or we stop them by defunding, by quit paying our property taxes for the sewer lines. And everybody in the township's got to be together on this, and don't have somebody up here with a microphone telling us we can't do it. And as far as Westerville owning their own utilities and stuff, they buy their power from AEP and hook it up. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Deborah Walsh.
Can you just pull that down? Thank you.
I'm Deborah Walsh. I live at 4800 South County Line Road at the very corner of the intersection of Delaware, Licking, and Franklin counties. My question is, I know a lot of residents here are still gobsmacked by the recent reevaluation of property taxes. And a lot of people live in Harlem Township by choice, not Westerville by choice. Would it be possible as part of any negotiation to negotiate that current landowners based on age or income have homestead exemptions for increased property tax abatement until that property is sold again, so that current residents aren't additionally burdened by living in an area that they did not choose, because they already have current, reevaluations they're struggling with. Is that something that you could negotiate for this merger, to have permanent abatement based on age or income criteria?
I don't know, well, we can put it on our list. I don't have any idea
Well, write
whether
that down,
that's,
write that down.
no, it's
It's on
only,
your
till
list.
we got it.
Okay.
And we'll add that to our discussion for review. I just don't know how to respond to that. I'm not sure anybody here would be able to give you a straight answer on that.
Well, is that something that is legally possible to do?
Well, I'm having people whisper no, but I guess we ought to still ask the question.
Okay, because a lot of residents here are elderly and low income, and this would have a huge impact.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
that's what, yes, we're fully aware of, and we know that that is a hardship, but
Yes, yeah.
that has been core to our discussion, before we brought this forward to the trustees, recognizing that.
That kind of abatement might be the tipping point for how people will vote as well, considering the probable age range of most residents.
Yeah, between that and then if they're impacted by the income tax, there's
Correct.
two different financial potential hits depending on your circumstance.
Right, I understand income tax would be different, because that would include the services for police and all that other stuff, but, you know, the property tax based on age and income is an important negotiating.
We'll just have to look into the
Thank you.
legalities of that.
Right,
Thank you. Mr. Bob.
Bob Singer, 10555, Center Village Road, Galena, Ohio. We've been asked on numerous occasions to base whatever our decisions are made on facts. Is that correct? I'd like to, well, since I can only say one at a time, I'll do the second one later. Holly, did you read the website, Westerville before it was published?
Yeah.
All right, then I'd like to correct, or have you correct that site. It says both communities have a history of working together and sharing ideas on issues of common interest, including public safety, smart growth and infrastructure, and economic development. In 8 years as a trustee, I never once spoke to Westerville.
Yeah,
And
Bob, can I just try to answer that, because I believe that was poorly worded. And I asked the question too, and it made it sound like working together meant collaboratively between the two, and I have no recollection of that either. All right, working together meant working together within the Harlem environment and in the Westerville environment. And it was not meant to imply that there was some grandiose cooperation between the two. That was poorly worded.
okay, because it wasn't, and I spoke with Jerry here in 40 years.
I have no.
He didn't have
recollection
one
of-
conversation with Westerville.
I agree.
All right, well, I'll go back on the other one.
What's that?
Hi, Peggy Kunzman, Miller Fall Road. If the merger does go through, can we retain the utilities we currently have? It sounded like that won't happen.
So, this question came up a lot during our community meetings, because the sewer has always been at the topic of our
I
conversation.
don't want sewer, I
So,
don't need.
right, so, the story, I'll let, Carl just say it. You say it so eloquently.
I've always said, it. So that you cannot be forced to find this.
Okay, but will they condemn my septic system?
Delaware County could always simply.
But that would be immoral.
This is why I would refuse myself personally to ever go any higher in politics. You're right.
Okay. Can I ask one other question? What if in the vote, one entity says yes and one entity says no, then what
It
happens?
doesn't have.
It doesn't pass.
Doesn't pass.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Tammy Spencer, 106, oh gosh, I'm so nervous, 10360 Gorsuch Road, Molina, Ohio. First off, I understand growth and development are inevitable, but it's concerning that there are 4,500 plus people in the community and you have said that you email, what, 500 people? Are you mailing this information out to people, like through the mail? I didn't receive anything in mail.
No,
So lots of people do not know about a lot of what is going on. That is a problem. This needs to get mailed out. Everyone needs to know about it. That is not fair. Okay, and I also am just kind of concerned the fact that I wasn't aware that I was in a district now that was approved a year ago that allows acres over 25 to be developed into, you're allowed to put a house on, 3 houses on 1 acre now. Is that right?
go ahead.
So anything over 25 acres and half of Harlem Township in my district, you can go in and plop down a development right now with the overlay.
The developer would have to come in
Yes.
and provide a development plan that complies with the
3 houses on 1 acre.
it's 2. But yeah.
It said 3 in this. I
They might
have
an
this.
old version.
This is the old version, this is from 2023, so
Yeah.
it's 300-page document that I combed through. I don't have an attorney to tell me what the language means, but it was devastating to see that we didn't, as people, did not get to vote on it.
So
Why did we not get to vote on that zoning, and why did you guys get to decide that for us?
the Ohio Revised Code allows the trustees to vote on the zoning, and then there is a 30-day referendum period when residents can petition to put it on the ballot. And
30 days, so we would have known about it.
so
We could have
there
petitioned it.
are requirements for the township to provide notification, which they complied with those notification requirements.
Through email,
And, through newspaper notification and the website. And also during the time when we were planning for the overlay districts through the quick strategy guide, we did mail out a mailer to every.
I sent a survey, I did fill that thing out about whether you wanted cluster housing, or you wanted a Target, or you wanted a this or that.
Can I please finish my statement?
I'm sorry.
We mailed a mailer out to every single household. And we held 10 community meetings that were listed on that mailer that went to every household. And they were held at various times. There were some during the day, some during the evening to provide opportunity for everyone. And we described those different overlay proposals. And then after the quick strategy guide was approved, we held a series of meetings at 6:30 in the evening that were open to everyone to come and review and provide input on those overlays. Then it went through the required public hearings that were advertised in the newspaper and the websites that are required by the Ohio Revised Code to adopt the zoning.
It never went to election. We never got to vote on it though.
The Ohio Revised Code allows the trustees to approve the zoning.
Okay, so what is the plan for the farmers who have mentioned, I've seen farmers saying, I'm not gonna be able to pay Westerville taxes. They're on these lots, so it's not like you're setting the stage, take them out. And then just park down these houses in like high density situations already.
We don't.
That is
have-
not our vision, so I don't understand how, in Westerville, it's only gonna make it worse.
Okay. Thank you for your comment. We'll move on to the next question, please. There's not, we gave an answer to most of that. Go ahead.
Not.
Hi, I'm Sarah Kidd, I'm at
Can you
1309.
step to the microphone? It won't work.
Sarah Kidd at 1309, Ohio 605. So as of January 1, if this were to pass, both municipalities at that point, we become Westerville. Harlem Township ceases to exist at that point. We only increase their population 12%, but we double their land. Our taxes have gone up. We all have larger lots than most of Westerville, I would say. Is there some sort of guarantee, or how is that money divided to come back to us? Is there a guarantee that it would come to what used to be Harlem, but is then Westerville?
So there would have to be services that are provided to the township. So public safety services, roadway services. So all of those would be provided by the city of Westerville,
Which
and those dollars
those
would have to
residents
come
already get.
to support those services.
Yes, but the residents of Westerville also have those because we would be residents of Westerville. But we're increasing their tax base based on our property taxes with over 50% more land, right?
So that they can,
So we're gonna have double the police here than they have where they are at now.
no, but right now you have the sheriff's office that services you. The likelihood of that sheriff being in this township on, all the time on different rotations of shifts, is they're not here all the time. When Westerville Public Safety Services, if we would merge, you would have police officers in this township on a regular basis.
All the time.
Yeah.
It's doubling their land. So we would have a station here.
They have indicated they would have to hire additional public safety officers to help support the township.
Thank you.
Now, I'm gonna move to a card if that's okay.
Sure, can you just hold back for 1 second?
Yeah, so we have a card that says, why don't we become a village, the village of Harlem? We did actually explore that option. We talked through it with an attorney, and based upon the Ohio Revised Code, requirements, we cannot get to the, what we need to comply with incorporating the township as its own village.
Which is what?
It is it's a matter of a certain density of a population, within a certain area, and then at that point in time, you can incorporate it. And we did the maps on it, and we cannot get to that density of population.
It has to be a minimum of a 2 square mile area and a minimum population density of 800 people per square mile. Harlem Township is nowhere near that. We're at about 150 people per square mile. If you take it over the entire township, even in our most dense area, which would probably be around Center Village, you're not going to get anywhere near that with the 2 square mile minimum requirement.
Okay.
Jamie Osborne, 3181 Millerville Road. I have a question on the fact that, so last year's meeting, residents had spoke up that they did not want the growth that's coming, and I understand it's gonna come. But to say we're trying to do responsible growth in any community is not, because the developers have the money to do what they want to do, and we don't have a say in how I feel. So our zoning currently, if I'm correct, is 2.5 for residential, 5 acres, and then they have to get it rezoned to be able to go 2.5. If that's the case, how is it that that got passed in on Gorsuch? So that means you guys can vote if we don't get a referendum on it. You can vote to have the 2 houses on 1 acre, and so what our zoning is, so how did that get passed in 2 houses on 1 acre? And our zoning is, I thought 2.5 acres and 5 from agricultural.
So the overlay districts that we have up on this slide that you saw, they are strictly what that's referred to as an overlay.
So is that the purple one or which?
So they're all overlays. So all 3 of them that have been adopted are overlays. So the underlying zoning continues to take place. You can be effective. So whatever you're zoned, today or prior to those overlays going in, still is in effect. And then if a developer wants to come in and develop a piece of land, they can pull down the overlay district. We call it pulling down the cloud. And if they comply with all of the standards within that overlay district, then that is when it moves to that 2 units per acre.
So we basically have to put a referendum on everything that
Those are all,
comes in.
those are all administratively approved. The referendum would have taken place back when the overlay went into place.
So we can't do a referendum on those anymore then?
Those
That
would all be
happens. So we're-
administrative actions that do not have a referendum to them.
So basically, it's not with the community, we don't get the 2.5, it just goes what you guys vote on, is that what it is then exactly?
The zoning today is still in effect.
Except for in the overlay.
With the overlay over top of it, but your current zoning.
Do you guys have that out there so we can see where the overlay is exactly set up there?
We can give it to you. I mean, it's on the website. On the website, you can go there and go.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dan Kitterly, I live at 16561 Warsaw Road. And thank you for having my question and for all this tonight. My question is that this merger
Just
does.
get a little closer to the mic.
Yeah, pull it up.
Yeah, that's much better.
Alright.
Yeah.
This merger does occur. What kind of representation do the residents of Harlem Township have in this new kind of governance? Are we gonna expand Westerville City Council and have representation on there? Are we gonna have a seat in their zoning meeting board member type thing? The answer may be, I don't know, which is okay, but just food for thought, or we're proactively thinking about that.
The answer is we don't know at this point in time, but we are looking into it, and that is something that we understand is a desire and obviously makes sense because to have representation of the township. So we are continuing to have those conversations.
This is also one of, as I've said, this is one of the negotiated items that we will go in with, and it's something that if we don't feel it's right, and if, we get the feedback enough that it's not right, we can walk from the negotiation. If the representation is adequate once the decision is made on November 2nd, click no.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
Jeffrey, 6650 Harlem Road. I work in Harlem Township, and we do not have local income tax. If we become Westerville, then now I owe them 2%, and my property tax goes up, and I gotta buy their utilities, and whatever else they say I have to do. And your agreement with them, oh, you're a township, and, you can still use your firearms in your township. Eventually, they're gonna crush that too, because, they're not gonna allow us to do what we wanna do out here. So why are we even approaching them to begin with, when they're just as bad as anyone that would against us?
There are, well, thank you for the question. There are, I guess in my mind, and I'll leave it for others to reply, but I see three foundational items Carl has mentioned that we go into this negotiation looking for. One has to do with zoning. We talked about that a lot. And we need to have an extended period of time. I don't know what that means. I know in my mind what that might mean, where our zoning is left untouched. Okay, and after that, there's a board set up that continues to operate with Westerville in some manner to continue to arbitrate zoning within what is currently the boundaries of Harlem Township. So that's number one. Number two, we need some form of representation that meets our needs. So I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's a council seat, if it's on some of their planning and zoning area. I don't know, but it's clearly on the docket that will be talked about. And then the third one is ordinance. And can I hunt? Can I fire my gun? I like throwing clays across my creek to shoot. I really don't I don't expect that to go away, nor am I willing to see that go away. So ordinances, they already understand we need to be, if Carl wants to drive his ATV on the street, clearly we have to allow the farmers to do their job, driving their equipment on the roads. And so I would be looking for basically a grandfathering on their ordinances to be basically set aside for the landmass of what is currently Harlem Township. I think those are the three foundational areas, and then they're all a mouthful that we'll be working on in the negotiation. And that is where one of the reasons why tonight we want to continue to hear from folks, and there will be more of these types of meetings, probably a little more focused, to ensure that we've got the right list as we go forward.
And some of the things you mentioned were items that the committee was told, if they don't agree to these up front, walk. That's why some of the other municipalities were not looked at. Because they would not agree with a lot of those things up. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
As we're transitioning,
Okay, we're gonna ask someone here, we'll be right back.
I'm gonna move to these two cards because they kind of go along with that, with the zoning part of it. questions about, how does the zoning that just got adopted, how is that affected by a merger? And then, kind of the answer to that is, we have told Westerville that that zoning needs to stay in place. That is something that is very important to the township. It's one of the items that Carl has said we will walk if we don't have that. And then the other question on the other part is retaining the zoning, how long after a merger would it be retained? That has not been answered yet. That is something that we have to still discuss and determine with Westerville.
All yours.
Zach Place, Gorsuch Road. Just thinking about the math here, we've got 40,000 people in Westerville, give or take, right? And 5,000 here, so that's 8-1 ratio. No chance in the snowballs, whatever, that we'll have any representation in Westerville if there's any vote comes to representing us. Just statistically, it's not possible. I've seen this shenanigans going on in lots of places. I lived in Westerville and saw them fighting against Columbus, all the same arguments you guys are making. I lived in Etna Township, Licking County, and they were able to resist the annexation from Reynoldsburg. They were put in some of their own water lines or whatever it took, and the people of Etna got together and were able to resist it. They now are represented pretty well. They weren't so much when this all started, so they got rid of all their township trustees and got people that represented the locals. I don't know you folks, so I don't know how you stand with us, but it seems like there's ways that townships are able to at least support themselves. Maybe joining with a little town like Galena, turn into a city based on numbers. I don't know the math, and I don't know the legalities of that, but I don't know that Westerville represents me or most people here.
Hi, Angie Herrick, 12963 Center Village Road. Just a reminder, I spoke last week. I have worked in mergers and acquisitions for a long time, 31 years in my professional life. I can tell you that once we're merged and our autonomy is gone, we are gone. So we're at their will. You cannot negotiate something because you have no ability to execute any type of restitution or resolution once we're gone. You don't exist, so you can't sue yourself. So just we need to make that clear. My question is, last week there was conversation about the water issue. So we're on Delco Water and we're not aware of the water issue. And there was talk about Delco Water having an issue and needing Westerville for water. Can you please talk to us about that again tonight so we can hear it?
Well, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna clarify that as we've talked about other utilities at future meetings. We heard you loud and clear last Thursday night. That's one of our primary questions, which is around all of the utilities in order to bring more clarity to what the options there are.
Okay.
So we're not going to go down that path tonight.
Appreciate it. So what I remember you saying is that Delco Water couldn't service Harlem Township, that they had an issue. And the issue was that they couldn't bring water here. And there was consideration about having to bore under Hoover Reservoir. That was said. So I had a conversation with Brian Coughlin, the CEO of Delco Water today. Delco Water does not have an issue with providing water service to Harlem Township, and they don't need Westerville.
Thank you.
Robert Burns, 625 Harlem Road, Galena, Ohio. Steve, I'm going to ask you this time. Carl, I will ask you this though, since you're a trustee. With all the trustees in the township, I'm going to place a records request with you and all the trustees for any and all meetings or information that the STC provided to you regarding the merger with Westerville. And how soon can I do that? As of tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. in the township hall? Thank you.
Robin Lowenstein, 13223 Beagleheimer Road. First of all, I would like for you all to stop referring to this as a strategic partnership. It by no means represents a partnership between these communities. At the last meeting, we confirmed that there were no pending annexation permits on any side of Harlem Township, none at all. I assume that you all are tracking land purchases patterns in the township to note any potential annexation play as good stewards of our township. So I find this to be a lot of fear mongering here. That's unfortunate. Anyway, I assume we're aware of Intel's recent announcement that they are delaying their schedule. They apparently want $70 billion from the $28 billion federal handout pot, so that should be interesting to observe. They need that in order to proceed to production. These government subsidized things seem to run this way. So they are looking at 2026 potentially to be in production. The sanitary sewer completion will also be at the end of 2026. Now, that's 2 years. More than 2 years. Okay. This merger, with this emphasis on acquiring water that is necessary to development, is only going to serve to fast forward the development of this former township. It's very off-putting, and that development will be under the direction of and for the tax benefit of the city of Westerville, not for us. Just a year ago, Westerville purchased, I assume what would be one of its last remaining open parcels. It was an 80-acre undeveloped parcel. They purchased it just over a year ago for $8.7 million. Their purpose in purchasing it, they said, was to provide commerce for the coming Intel developments. You see, Westerville's goal is to get ahead of this and get out and make as much money as they can. And in fact, their assistant city manager, Jason Bechtold, made this statement: Westerville has a track record of adapting land for commercial use. What part of that resonates with Harlem Township? When I drive through Westerville, I do not see one characteristic that reminds me of a rural agricultural area. Now, as someone else mentioned, with the addition of former Harlem Township to Westerville, it will actually triple. It will triple their acreage, giving us no voice whatsoever. We will have the majority land area and the minority voice. We will be absorbed into a community, and we will have to hope that the 40,000 people across that reservoir share our vision for our former township. But the likelihood of that is slim, as most of you understand. And I failed to mention last week that I actually served on the zoning commission here in Harlem Township for several years. I stood down early in January 2022 to attend to my ailing mother. And in fact, I continued to have other ailing family members and was out of state for several months this year. And this bomb you dropped on me when I stood down from that zoning commission position. We had just finalized a new comprehensive plan that was anticipating this development. And we're about to embark on syncing the zoning code with the comprehensive plan. 2 years later, I found out that you're giving away the store lock, stock, and barrel to the city of Westerville. What were we doing for all those years? I mean, I feel that
To get the sequence right, the comprehensive plan was approved in the summer of 21. I was on that committee working with you. Intel announced in January of 22, the comprehensive plan in no shape, way, or form anticipated a development of the size of an Intel. That is why we recognize that life changed on January 20th, when that intel announcement was made, and moved to put together a group of people to form a strategic planning committee to start thinking about, you're not gonna stop it, but we knew if there was a bullseye on Harlem Township and all the open farmland for developers, the focus on that went up a magnitude after the announcement of intel. And so that's what we set our sights on, which is what we have done over the last 2 years, and focused on getting principally the overlays put in place to try to shore up a couple of boundaries. But we're also pretty sure that that is insufficient. It's good, but insufficient now with the pressure we're gonna have from incursion on some of our boundaries. So I just want to get the sequence right.
Well, the comprehensive plan did address the sewer coming in, and it was crafted to address increased development in this area, which we all acknowledge is coming one way or another. Just like you referenced Orange Township earlier, Orange Township remains Orange Township, by the way, to this day, as do all the townships surrounding Harlem Township. And another thing that was not mentioned last week, of all the communities, Westerville is actually losing population. Well, what areas are growing? Galena, Sunbury, why? Their income tax is half what Westerville is. My husband and I lived in Westerville for 8 years until we escaped over here to Harlem Township 20 years ago almost, thankfully. Someone mentioned last week that they felt that Westerville cared deeply about their residents. I can't speak to that, but I can tell you they care very, very deeply about their parks and recreation, which ranks 3 after fire and police. There are 11 members on that board. It's the largest board they have. They care very deeply about their Tree City representation, whatever costs are entailed there. And when none of all of these things have ranked low in Harlem Township citizen surveys, you know this.
Can I please ask you to move on to a question?
In a moment.
I need to see, wait a minute, Robert, I need to ask you, I want to ask the group because they responded to something you said. You're right. Orange Township is still a township. Genoa Township is still a township. Could I see a show of hands of who here wants to see Harlem Township become Orange Township or Genoa Township?
What?
Well, no, I'm just saying, if we're gonna compare, let's just ask, let's keep all the facts out. Nobody here wants to become either one of those either. So you, if I'm hearing right,
They need to decide their zoning for their township, so they're the ones that.
you're right, it's not a trustee, but it's a trustee issue. When the trustee,
I want to turn this over back to questions.
What?
They're supposed to be asking questions, and I have 3 parts here.
I wish for everyone in this room that you get a good 20 years in a township that really cares about you, controls the spending, leaves you to live your life alone on your property as you see fit with only the most reasonable of restrictions for as long as you possibly can.
What we're talking about, so there was the question of why is Genoa Orange, Berkshire, and Liberty, why have they all remained townships? That's a couple of different people asked that. I would like to make sure everyone is aware that Harlem Township is very unique from these other townships with sewer coming from 3 different directions. That makes a huge difference in how we approach Harlem Township versus any of these other townships. The other question that was asked here is about Pataskala and Lima Township merging. And if anybody has reached out to them to ask what they've learned from their merger. And I do have the attorney's name who worked on that. So that is something that I intend to do in the future as we move forward. And then this is the last question. I don't think we have the answer to that question. Who's on the negotiating team, that has not been determined yet.
No. There will be a negotiating team that will square off with Swear on, well, swear on, live in Westerville for the purpose of that 120-day period. And that is being put together at this point in time, but it's not definitive. So, okay.
Hi, Kira Jackson, 13457 Woodtown Road. Here.
Just come a little closer.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, so I spent 2 hours on the phone today just speaking with Delaware County Health Department as well as the septic system. Because I went to the meeting last week and I walked away like, okay, we have no choice, we're getting this to do, then don't, we have to do Westerville, right? And I started thinking, and you kept saying, Delaware's bringing it in, Delaware's bringing it in. I'm like, well, who's paying for this? So I called them up, spoke to the person who actually handles unincorporated townships in Delaware County. And I was informed that, and I know you said some of this before, but I don't know if some people said that it was differently like I did. So yes, in 91, Columbus asked for some parts of Delaware to put sewer in. As part of the agreement in 91 was to put the system in Harlem Township. Okay, 91, not now. They have no intention, that is now turned over to Delaware County to do that. So all those people who were saying that city of Columbus put this in, they're gonna take over our land. That is not the case. It was in the contract in 91 to put it in. And I asked why it took this long, like it just seems a little off. She said, well, this is the takes for doing anything, and they already anticipated it anywhere from 2020 to 2025. It just happened to be that way. She said, so I asked her, and there's no intel, there's none of that. That's already the sewer is in on Smothers Road. Are you putting in lines for us? And she goes, no, we had no intention. We had nothing in our book to do anything with Harlem. We asked for it to be there on that side of the township. Now that the city of Westerville is coming in, now they have to scramble and figure it out because the city of Westerville wants to take over the sewer, but they don't want them to because they have a contract on the thing. And they said that everything's so confusing, they can't figure it like with the way things going. So they said the only way, if let's say Westerville's not coming in, the only way the sewers will be coming in is if someone sells to a developer, that developer asks for the sewer, they will work hand in hand on how much. I was told by the health department today that the likelihood of a lot of sewers coming in right now, because there's not many people in the township, that the water won't flow. So they would need a lot of like subdivisions by the time that happens. So then I questioned what everyone asked about the tap-in fee and all that stuff. The tap-in fee is $4,000. You are not required if you're 200 and more from their main line, like at the end of the road or the end of the street. And even if you're not, if you're under 200, there's a checklist that they have. She said that in the 8 years she's been with Delaware County that they've never forced anyone to tap in. They want to work with you with your sewer to help you fix it if you don't want it. A lot of people do want to tap in because it's only 4,000. I'm 300 feet. And they said if it was at the end of my road, it would be total 6,000. So sounds great, right? So I'm talking to the health department because I was like, well, if the city of Columbus or Westerville takes over, do they make us? And they had no idea. He goes, I'll tell you that they have a contract with the Franklin County Health Department who does the septic system. We have no idea how that's going to work if they're going to end up taking over and we won't have Delaware County. So we might all be subject to Franklin County, which is probably one thing you probably want to ask in one of your meetings is, are they keeping us Delaware County Health or Franklin County Health since they have the contract with them? And this was from the actual health thing today. So, so she also said to me, yes, I don't have questions, so I'll find one again. So she said to me, she was part of this committee with you and helping, and she was like, it's crazy to me that they want Westerville to come in. And I'm like, well, why would you say that? I mean, Columbus coming in, we're trying to prevent that. She goes, you have sewer, you have water. I've never seen a city come in and annex anything in that has sewer and water, because that's what they provide when they annex it in. So she was like, your threat is not really that high. She also said, and this is not for me, I'm actually talking to the person, so keep in mind. Her best friend left a year ago from Franklin County, and they said that they have no intention of annexing anything in because they don't have the resources to pay for this area or other areas right now, like the police and such. So until the developer, someone sells the developer, that land is right by the city of Columbus, which we're not there yet, we're okay on that part. So that's just a couple of things that I spoke with. So I think, you know, speaking with that, I'm so worried about Columbus that it doesn't sound like we can't. And I guess, okay, so here's my question, let's be honest. I just read that Delaware City annexed part of, I think, Brown Township, right? And Brown Township did not get enough signatures on the ballot to override. So that made me think, didn't you tell us that there's nothing we can do if they take like a parcel of our land, but now we can put signatures on? Because the House Bill 33 is saying that they met last night with BIA, and that's what they decided, that they want 33% or 35 signatures to put it on a ballot.
I don't know the specific situation that you're speaking of there, but there are 5 different types of annexation. And the one that is the biggest threat is the type 2 expedited annexation. If the property owners, 100% of property owners agree to the annexation and it meets all the technical requirements of the Ohio Revised Code, there is nothing that Delaware County can do to stop that annexation. Delaware County Commissioners are the ones that vote on it. And there is no appeal process by any of the residents.
What would qualify emergency?
I'm sorry?
Like, what would qualify as an emergency for them to?
As an emergency?
Didn't you say that?
It's not emergency, nothing emergency, there's a type 2 expedited. Yeah, expedited. So that means if 100% of the landowners agree to the annexation, it can qualify as a type 2 expedited annexation.
Like
And to
people
clarify,
around them, people around them.
that is the landowner of the property that is at request of the annexation.
Yeah.
That's not landowners around it.
Right.
That is, somebody had 100 acres and they wanted to annex it, and they own the whole 100 acres. Nobody else has to do it.
Correct.
So the whole reason why they annex it is so that they can get what they want, which is why we spent a year or 2 developing your plan to put into place so that they like what we provided and they won't go to Columbus City. So it seems like, you know, you sold it one way and now we're selling it a different way.
Because we've had different evolving conditions that have evolved over time. Correct.
So the
I would like-
HB 33 right here, none of it says anything about, they were talking about doing that away from zoning, but none of it is in the actual legislation. Just so you know, now there is like they want to do a residential, like tax abatement for like 7 years, so that is terrible, but I don't find anything that you're trying to scare us.
Good, thank you.
Well,
Hi, Brad Moore, 10689 Color Pines Court. So I had a couple questions about some inconsistencies that I've seen in the presentation. So one is, Steve, you had mentioned that the date would be around Memorial Day, where all this happens after the
Before.
100 days.
I think it's,
But if you look at April 2nd, which is when Westerville would approve it, 120 days takes you closer to July 4th. It's 3 months, 120 days. from
something's
April
wrong,
2nd.
something's wrong with that. man.
Right, so that's,
But that's, okay, keep going.
okay. The other thing was about the fact that on one slide, and we addressed it a little bit earlier, is that the zoning would be maintained, quote, for a period of time. And that's been discussed here. What does a period of time mean? You have not really nailed that down apparently, but I'm sure you have opinions. And I think the people here would love to hear your opinions insofar as how far you and how hard you're willing to push to maintain the zoning that the people here really want. The other thing I wanted to mention was that I think it's loud and clear that people are looking for other options than what was presented as a merger. I don't know if you saw an article in the Columbus Dispatch the other week about Ohio Township Association opposing home builders' push to take away the township zoning. So there is an organization of Ohio Township Association that obviously is trying to get some critical mass to push back against the developers? Are we involved in that? Are we part of the Ohio Township Association? And if not, why?
I understand.
I'm sorry, what was the
I
answer?
understand.
That we are.
That's my understanding.
Okay, so what are the findings? What are they? I'm sure.
I have been part of everything.
And as you know, Carl, I talked about taxes last night at the other meeting before. People want to see the impact on taxes. I went on the website today to understand what some of the payroll issues were, or I guess my question was, what is the payroll for the city of Westerville? How many people do they employ? And you strip out schools and you strip out fire and you strip out police. You have a plethora of people who are being paid by the city, and all that is we're gonna be burdened by a lot of that. I mean, they have aquatic supervisor getting paid $81,000. A We Connect business development person being paid $101,000, engineering tech, $91,000.
Is there a question then?
No, there is
Okay.
Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging, $134,000. There's 30 job postings like this currently on the web, and we're gonna be saddled with.
Thank you, Doug.
I want to say that it's a long time being back in the line.
A lot of questions.
Good questions.
Let's,
Fine. It's been said that the fire department needs a new levy. And this is the first I've heard of it. And I wonder if there have been major discussions about a new levy. Because again, I want to try to get to some facts.
I'm usually not going to. Has there been any major discussion? There has been a presentation and a discussion from our chief that we are going to be sitting down as a trustee and talking about what is. Yes.
And what time frame do you think that levy, because it's been said that the levy will offset like the 2% income tax.
The initial numbers that I have been told of, and I'm speaking, he's not here unfortunately. I've been told that it would basically offset.
that's not, time. It's not the income tax.
No.
If there was an offset, it would increase property tax. There's no way it could impact the income tax. So if the property tax, as the Q&A says, would go up somewhere $120 for $100,000 valuation, that would, then Westerville would be responsible for the totality of the new Westerville and the fire department combined. If that merger doesn't go through, there is some, and I'm not in the middle of this, but I'm hearing there's anticipation of some increased needs, therefore leading to a levy, because the last one was in 2006.
How many levies do we have? And what millage are they?
I don't know.
And how much do they generate? I have all that.
All I'm saying, Bob, is was there a discussion, and I'm trying to think what the logic of the explanation was, that if we in fact had to have a fire levy sometime over the coming years, that in itself could to some degree offset the potential of what we would pay in increased property tax to Westerville. So that is what was trying to be communicated.
I believe it was said that with the income,
No.
the 2%.
It was not anything to do with the 2%. We never said that.
Okay.
We did not say that.
And how much, you said a mill is equivalent to $100,000, how much is it? Per $100,000, how much, what dollar figure?
Yeah, well, it was in,
We're saying, on here, 3.4 mils equates to $120 per year for every $100,000 of fair market value. And, it actually talks about the EMS and fire in the, frequently asked questions, and it talks about it being the property tax.
Okay.
Okay.
Online, it's,
No, online it's.
I don't mean there, I mean social media.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking for facts.
Right, yeah, it's
And-
property.
At another time, we'll discuss whether the fire department needs a new levy, but,
right,
all right, thank you.
thank you.
I'm gonna take these real quickly. We have a couple of questions asking, if, what happens if we talk about this for a year and it gets voted down? And then also, are we talking to any other municipalities? So I don't know if you guys want to talk about a backup plan, that's the first question. And then the, second question of, have we talked to other communities? I'll answer that. Yes, we have talked to other communities. They haven't met the criteria that we needed. And then if you want to talk about backup plans, you can. Yeah, backup plan would be to, re-examine where we are with, the water and the sewer and situations, and to figure out if, there's another partner that can meet our criteria to move forward. The other question on here is, as a township, can a referendum be used to oppose Harlem Township trustees to initiate a merger consideration? Well, there is no referendum on that. That's just a resolution of intent to merge. And then the residents actually vote on it in November. So that's already going to the ballot anyways.
Yeah, as I said, there's 3 different voting periods. One's the resolution on March 20th. Again, after the agreement period, and you're right, it's July 2nd is the end of the 120 days.
And it's on this
And then the final decision then comes on, election day. So, that's the final say. Yes, ma'am.
Sarah Kidd on thirteen.
Can you come just a little closer, please?
Sarah Kidd on 1309 Ohio 605. I got the fancy flyer with the fancy timeline, but you keep saying we will pull out, right? If things aren't going our way, we'll pull out. At what point and how does that look like pulling out? Is that a vote every single time they're discussing? Who is voting? How many people does it take to pull out?
As this process continues and as the negotiation team meets, discusses, talks, the 2 teams, us, them, they will be making reports on a regular basis to the trustees. And at any point when it's just not going anywhere or it's not with some baselines, we'll tell them to stop.
But is there like a weekly schedule of this is not going our way? Or is there like how many trustees does it take to pull out of this? Or
I mean, usually the trustees meet once a month, but we know we're gonna have to meet more often than that. So it's gonna be whatever it takes. If we have to meet weekly, if we have to meet semi-weekly, every other day, we'll do what we have to stay on top.
There's not the strategic planning committee and the negotiating team, it is not going the direction that we expect. We're not gonna waste a lot of our time. And so we've got to, when we get into the 120-day formal sit down at the table period, we don't have to wait 120 days if we don't see clear progress on getting to the foundational elements that we've been talking about here. And so, the strategic planning committee can stop the process just by choosing not to negotiate. It doesn't require a vote. It doesn't require an action by the trustees. And come the end of the negotiating period in July, it will come back to the trustees to either accept or not accept the negotiated agreement. And it'll be pretty clear at that point, if we pulled out or stop the work, it's not gonna go past that. That'll be the end.
So how many members of the strategic planning committee need to oppose it or decide to stop?
You know what? We haven't had to have a vote yet. I mean, it's been pretty clear along the way. And again, we're not a legal body. We can vote all we want. We're not a legal body, okay? But, we've been in sync, right up to the point, and including when we made the recommendation a couple of weeks ago to the trustees to embark upon this journey. So I'm pretty sure it'd be unanimous, speaking for all of my friends. I mean, it'll be clear to us whether or not this is gonna go.
Do the trustees have the power to stop the strategic planning
They
committee?
can just tell us to go away, sure.
That's all I have.
Thank you to your vote of confidence.
Hi, Angie Perry, 12963 Center Village Road, Lena. First, I want to say that trust is earned, and once it's lost, it's very difficult to get back. And so what I am experiencing is you're being danced around by the aspirations of what Westerville City has, and you're not dancing with us. We're here, we're speaking, you're being combative in your responses. And to be quite honest with you, if we've hired legal counsel and we've hired strategic planning and development firms such as Polly's, and this is the best we've got, is that we need to be sold out to Westerville, something is amiss. So we're going to work really hard to notify our 4,629 residents of Harlem Township as of the 2022 census, to make sure that everybody is educated on what's going on here, because that glossy you give out this week, you gave it out last week, it's scratching the surface. It looks like we're entering into a retirement community where we're going to need bicycle paths and various other emergency services at our door. We moved out here because we wanted to be in a rural area, not because we wanted those things or what Westerville has. So you're not representing us. The thing I want to understand is, what are you doing while you're burning cycles, being danced around by the city of Westerville to work a parallel path, whether it be a JED, a TIF, or whatever. If you feel like you're over your skis and you need help, I said last week, we've got a lot of brilliant people out here. We didn't get to where we are by not being diligent in what we do. And if you're tired, you're overworked, and I'm telling you what, if you're meeting once a month, that's not enough. You need to be meeting every day. You said it yourself, we're meeting once a month. I'm in meetings all day long. So please start representing us, because we're going to continue to dig and we're going to figure out what's going on, and we're going to decide, and you will have wasted time because we're not going to vote this in.
I've never been accused. I've never been accused of maybe I wasn't close enough to Mike. I said, in general, we meet once a month as trustees.
Okay, semantics.
No, it's not.
That's not, I sat here and I allowed you to speak. Please afford me that same, and if you don't like what I'm saying, that's fine. I said, in general, the trustees meet once a month. I also said, if we have to meet weekly, daily, or whatever, as this process goes, we will do that.
Okay, we should have been doing it already because you've been talking to them since I think you said last year. We should have been doing that already. Secondly, you need to be meeting with residents more communication.
That's information.
You said it.
No, that's, we said we had our first, yeah, well, that's fine. Never mind, go ahead.
Derek Elsasser, 5257 Green Cook Road. I just want to say I've been standing here for about 20 minutes. And one of you had the gall to write my question on the card. But I'm going to elaborate. And so it was alluded to earlier on that there have been conversations with more than just Westerville. and it's been kind of generalized and glossed over. I think we've talked a lot about trust, we've talked a lot about due diligence. I think if you can share that feedback, comments, notes from those meetings, who you engaged with, if we seem to, we've got some extensive information about what that relationship with Westerville would be like. I'd like to hear about those other conversations that you've engaged with, the pros and cons to those, and what would prevent us from moving forward with something else. So just kind of an ask, not a question.
Okay, well, that's been asked a couple different times, and we'll do our best to get that back to you here in the coming weeks.
Dutch Holland, 7100 Harlem Road, Westerville. So somebody wrote your question, you asked mine. What I'm looking for is, we've talked to multiple villages and cities. And you mentioned that you got to a point where they were answering the questions right. Is there any common theme that you can share with us about, well, we talked to, and I'm making up a number, 6 villages, and 3 of them gave this answer that was right, and 2 of them gave this answer that was kicked.
One of the first things, Dutch, we asked was for a non-annexation agreement. We wanted that upfront. We wanted them to sign, if they were not interested in annexing us, then we were interested in talking. That usually was not, with a couple of them, we got a flat no, we will not sign. The next thing was, and talking to some folks that, I've said, this is Harlem Township, you have to understand. I want to be able to shoot my gun in my backyard, is that going to be an issue? I want to be able to hunt on my property, is that going to be an issue? There were some core things that over the time that I've lived here, that I found that are kind of like a core of what we are. And we said, if those things could not exist in this world that we were talking about, then we had no further need to discuss.
Great, so I sensed a little frustration tonight. And I think when you give specific examples like that here's the questions we ask, and that's why these people fell out. Right, and I don't know if you're at liberty to say who fell out that we've talked to, but I think that might go a ways in calming, letting us understand.
Please understand too, that we are 1 week out from saying that we have this intent to merge. We have work to do. We have questions and answers that are coming up here in these meetings that are good questions that we are going to continue to find answers for and provide answers to you. And so the purpose of tonight is to understand what questions are there so that we can be able to continue to get information that the community wants.
And I've attended a number of the strategic planning committee meetings. And I don't know how many of you have attended those, but there's a lot that goes on at those meetings. And was I surprised when it was said, hey, we're going to annex to Westerville? Yeah. But excuse me. But I expected us to do something like that, just based upon all the information that we talked about during those meetings about this guy owns land next to Columbus, and he can decide he wants to merge. And we can't do anything about it. I mean, I've heard over the last year, all of the threats and what has to be done. And I'm not surprised.
Dutch, I've been asked several times, we've been asked several times to wait. And I'm getting ready for the grunts. I know they're gonna come, you know me, you've been around me long enough. My house ain't on fire. I don't need fire. I can't wait until it's on my doorstep to do something about it. And that's all we're trying to do. And I'm gonna say it again, and I keep saying it. November 2nd or November 5th, whatever day it is. Vote no. If you don't like it.
vote no. And at the end, the people will decide, and guess what? On November, the day after, unless people decide to change their mind, I will represent Harlem Township to try to find the next step. But we have to do something.
I agree, and I'm seeing what you're doing. I know you've got good intention. And I think people are just not, I mean, when I came to my wife and I said, hey, there's an overlay district, and if somebody buys 20 acres, they can, build in the overlay district, and we could have four houses next to us. Well, why? And I've been to enough of the strategic planning commissions to know this is a proactive, a defensive position to say, this is what we can do to keep this from happening. And I was in the meetings when people said, we're just gonna build a wall and not allow that in. That ain't gonna happen. Developers have already bought land. And I think what you're doing is commendable. So, yeah. Thank you very
Robert Turner, 5625 Harlem Road, Glen, Ohio. I commend you all for sitting up here tonight, taking the meeting. One of the things that's peculiar to me, though, is we keep talking about a merger. A merger with Westerville. Yeah, merger with the city of Westerville. So section 709.43 of the Ohio Revised Code, Title 7, Municipal Corporations, as used in this section of the Revised Code, merger means the annexation to one another of an existing municipal corporation of or in an unincorporated area or township. So merger and annexation mean the same thing. Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks for staying up there and answering questions. Appreciate that.
There was no question. And the statement that was made was not correct.
The Ohio Revised Code says merger is annexation. Is that true? So your paper said merger. Merge, but the Ohio Revised Code states merger is annexation.
So I'm not gonna sit here and argue, but an annexation is a property owner initiative. A merger is an agreement between two communities, a township and a municipality, where the township and the municipality have negotiating powers.
I'd like to get in line and ask a question, please do so.
John Jacobus, 15530 Centerman Ridge Road. With the tax increase we're going to have, if there's 2% income tax, average house here in Harlem Township is probably between 500 and 750,000. Looks like we're going to be paying probably an extra $500 to $1,000 property tax, couple 2,000 or 3,000 per household for income tax. A lot of money. I would like
a clarification.
Yes.
On the income tax. So that is in the instance where you both work and live in the city. Okay, if you work outside of that, let's say it's happened, we're now Westerville, and you work outside of Westerville, there's reciprocity between them, and that gets zeroed out. So the people that are at risk of paying the 2% are those whose business is in Harlem Township.
Okay.
Okay. That's the same thing in my.
No, it's not, but it's more relevant to the argument.
My question is, I gotta see the value of paying that extra income tax, obviously. Have you, and I assume you have, I just wanted to hear you say it, have you explored the possibility of Harlem Township putting in its own sewer and water? And being the entity itself?
John, I'm not, and I'll tell you why. Cost. I mean, I've got folks here already about ready to lynch me because of the increase that we're talking about now. You understand, you're business minded, you real estate and everything else. The cost of putting the sewer line in, it would be so far out of the reach.
And there's also
And
the Ohio Revised Code requirements to create a district to do those. And the timing, the time to do that would not even align with
I mean,
where we are.
magic wand, I don't see.
All right, just wanted to get it on the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna move on to these questions. These are both have to do with the taxes. So I'm gonna move these to the side because I think they were answered with, what we've explored. So. And then I wanna, let's see, how credible is the threat of annexation from Columbus? Can you help quantify this? We can say that that Columbus is only a couple parcels away, a few parcels away from Harlem Township. And we had talked about this at our last meeting too, about developers will look for ways to get the continuity and bring the purchase land to get up there. So I can't quantify it, but I can tell you that it is on the edge of being able to. And one other thing I want to make sure it's clear is that Columbus itself does not annex. It's a property owner initiative. So developers are the ones that will look to help bring that annexation in from Columbus.
Okay,
Logistical question. I know some people in Harlem Township pay a special assessment to Delaware County for stormwater. City of Westerville has a stormwater utility fee that goes to care for their stormwater. How will that work? What will that look like? Will Delaware County transfer all of those easements to City of Westerville, or will people be paying double?
Again, those are things that we have to look into. We have to work through all those details. So that is on our list to work through.
I just learned something new tonight, so thank you.
I am aware of the differences. I understand what you're saying.
It's not my, thank you for the question. We'll look at that. I'll get it.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Kirsten Bell, 4344 South State Route 605. My family's lived here since 1941. So we've seen a lot of changes. I have 2 comments and 1 question. First of all, about the fire levy. I will crawl across broken glass to vote for a fire levy because we need safety in our community. I don't know what the plan is if we merge with Westerville, but the guys who are on this squad are a lot of the members of our community. And I like seeing their face show up at the scene of an accident, which they've had to do for us 4 times. So the second thing is the comment about democracy dying in darkness. It's the masthead of the Washington Post, and I don't think I've ever read anything truer. I think a lot of the anger you've seen in here tonight is because we all felt blindsided by this. I read about this Wednesday, the day of the meeting last week, and then later that day about a trustees meeting about this the next morning on Facebook with 5 likes. So I don't know what kind of notice to residents Facebook is. I have subscribed to the Delaware Gazette for 3 years now, trying to keep an eye out for notices from Harlem Township. And I know this is somebody's pet peeve. And it's definitely mine because the trustees and our government here do not communicate with the residents. I think that's where some of the anger comes from. And I'm sorry, but the red print on the black sign, I can't read it as I whiz by the firehouse. And I'm not going to drive up and reach it. Pardon me. Take it to the back door of the firehouse. That's all.
Hi, it's Matt Hollis, 5549 Miller Fall. So I think from a lot of what I've been hearing is whether we're for the merger or against the merger, there's a lot of work to be done. And it's my understanding from what I know about the township that this is going to require a lot of hours And it's probably gonna be a lot of volunteer hours, and I think there's I've heard a lot of passionate people in the crowd. So I'm wondering, how can we help you guys? Like, are there ways that we can get involved, that we can contribute our skills, time, expertise, or whatnot? I mean, we all care deeply about our land and our township, so that we can lessen the burden on the trustees and maybe help, facilitate some of that communication negotiation.
Hello, my name is Lee Greenwell. I live at 11665 Center Village Road. And just want to let everybody know that there is a document that you can find easily online. It's the 2023 Ohio Public Records Manual. In that manual, it states that a public body is a decision-making body of any level of government, including committees or subcommittees of the public body, even if these committees do not make the final decision. So based on that definition, you and I may agree to disagree, Steve. The Strategic Planning Committee is a public body, and that public body is governed under the Open Meetings Act.
That's correct. And we do not make decisions. That's
Whether or not you make decisions doesn't
no,
matter.
but you're still correct. The definition.
No, it's
We
a
do
public
not
body,
make decisions on the strategic planning.
but the definition was a public body may include the committees or subcommittees of a public body, even if they do not make the final decision. So even if the STC doesn't make.
But it's not a final decision. We didn't make any final.
It doesn't,
Well, listen, I don't want to argue with you.
That's fine.
Other than I will tell you that as we were going into this process and recognizing that as a strategic plan committee, once the discussion with Westerville, which was pretty bounded as Holly said, around the alphabet soup, Jed, Tips, all that good stuff, and the thought of merge at the table or in a discussion. We realized that we had work to do. And we also realized if we started doing that at one of our regular Tuesday night meetings, there would be no way to try to get any productive work done to build a business case, either for or against the idea, in the midst of all of the, uproar that would probably take place. So we knew we were facing into the surprise and disappointment that is transpiring. But what we had were workshops in order to build out a decision and recommendation to the trustees about the merge. And so those were the workshops that took place. It's the only time over the last 2 years that the committee has been in place that there's been anything but public meetings on the first and third Tuesdays of every month. And I mean, you participated, lots of people in the room have participated. So that, as I said last week, I know we disappointed. We surely shocked some people. I do not believe that there's anyone on the Strategic Planning Committee that acted in any sort of usurpative way. But we had to build a business case. We had to build some understanding of what we were hearing before we could bring that forward in any logical sense for review. And we sure weren't going to be able to do that by just putting it on the table and saying, hey, Harlem, what do you think about merging with Westerville? I think we would have had a difficult time even getting to the point we're at right now to engage in the next steps. So you can buy that or not, and as we went into that, back to your question, we talked to the prosecutor because a number of us had questions about the sunshine law. Okay, and so we took it to I'm not sure who. We took it to the prosecutor to see if under the organizational structure that the Strategic Planning Committee is operating under, were we breaking any legal boundary? And the reading from the prosecutor was we were not. So we did ask that question.
So for the entire existence of the strategic planning committee, up to that point, you operated as an open committee, in front of the public, and only when you got to the point where you wanted to talk about merger with Westerville, did you go dark?
Yeah.
And you got cover from the prosecutor's office.
That's right. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Brad Moore, 10689, Philippines Board. So just a question regarding, it seems as if Intel has really kind of expedited this whole process. Right, and so my question is, okay, your model was Chandler, Arizona. And so I don't know how in-depth you were able to investigate that model. I know you sent someone out there to talk to the people in Arizona, but at the same time, you know, is one person enough? What did they truly learn? Were there other influencing factors? My question is though, okay, where else can you get a case study? Isn't Honda and Marysville perhaps a case study? I mean, Honda put in a number of plants. They hired a lot of different people, and yet Marysville didn't really start growing until probably 20 years after all those plants were put in by Honda. So are we overreacting perhaps to Intel? I'm just asking the question. I think that maybe that needs to be looked into a little bit more, and that there needs to be several case studies investigated regarding this type of development.
I suggest if you haven't already done it, there's another video that was produced by us. It's called Intel on Intel. I suggest you watch that. That addresses the Honda, that addresses all of this, that addresses what is going to inevitably happen to the Central Ohio, which we're part of, the Central Ohio.
We also need
That's
yeah.
And we all on Intel.
Can you put that out on the website?
I believe it is on our website.
I think we did put it out. It was on the last email that went out. Intel proposed your child for the pressure that we face. Right? I mean, it's not just Intel. You got Amazon. You've got other data centers coming in. The pressure, I mean, the good news is we're living in Columbus, which is a thriving city with the medical, the software businesses that are growing, which is amazing. It is a booming city. Columbus is coming our way. Okay? I mean, what was once farmland, even 10 years ago, is now suburbs, or is going to look like suburbs if we don't take some of the steps that we think that's what we've been working on. But the reality is that we are this area of Central Ohio is going to see unprecedented growth. I don't think that's an overstatement. When Intel is going to bring in somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,000 employees for the two fabs. That's just Intel employees. That's not during the construction phase. That's just the fab operation. And again, the good news is the average paying job there will be somewhere over $120,000 per person, and it ranges from technicians to PhD. So we've become a tech hub. I mean, DeWine called it Central Ohio Silicon Valley, and that may be a little overstated, but it's not just Intel. We are getting the attention, and beyond what Intel hires, they will bring with them their sub-assembly suppliers, which probably multiplies, because I used to sell to those guys like Applied Materials. We did all the automation and all the Intel plants. So I've been inside and out of Intel plants my whole career. It's going to bring a 10x factor of that same requirement of skilled workers that Intel by itself will bring. So you start adding up the numbers, but you read every day in the paper about demand for housing and inadequate housing. So with our given geographical location in proximity to where this is happening, it's not a rocket science thing to understand one way or the other. The developers are going to take advantage of all the green space in Harlem Township. And so we need to find ways, to the best of our ability, to do that in some manner of controlled growth. We think the overlays are for a start on that, but that alone, as I said earlier, seem to be insufficient. So I'm sorry for the speech,
Yeah, no,
but
right. And so to your point though, because other people have brought it up too, other ways to mitigate the growth and expansion. And again, not to beat a dead horse, Carl, but you talked about packaged sanitary plants. And to the point where there is an OEPA meeting on March 20th, and you're voting for this, where they're having it in Johnstown, and the topic of the meeting is how to expedite the permitting process for packaged sanitation plants. And that is a perfect technology to get the sewers in place cheaply. And you said, okay, we don't have the money, but has anybody ever really run the numbers? There are federal grants out there, there are state grants out there, there's all kind of money available to develop this type of utility. We need to look hard at that. It can be done. Someone needs to do the math, because the technology is there. And OEPA even recognizes that it's there.
thank you, Joe. What's next?
Hi, Kathleen Johnson, 11660 Center Village Road. I have one comment, and I guess I have two comments. You might encompass a question. But while we're tying up this process potentially until November 5th, if time is of the essence, and someone mentioned this briefly earlier, a parallel plan should be in the works, because I don't think this is going to pass. I mean, we're early on here, but I've lived in this township my entire life. My great-grandfather was a trustee of this township. I think I've got a pretty good clue about the temperature of this township, and I don't think this is going to pass. So it is important to find some ways forward. And if we wait to do that until after this fails at voting no, which you suggested people do several times tonight, which leads me to wonder why you're sitting up there. But if there's another partner we could use, we need to be looking at that now in a parallel fashion, because I don't think this is going to pass, and I don't think a lot of people in here think that it is either. The other thing I would like to clarify is you talked about the 2% income tax on folks. There are people are not self-employed if they're remote workers. And maybe you guys have been retired for a while, maybe some of you haven't. There's a lot of remote workers who work from home. My husband, for one, company is in Houston. He doesn't pay Houston local tax. He doesn't pay any local tax. He's going to pay 2% of his entire salary and bonuses to Westerville, and he is not alone. There are a lot of people sitting in this room who work remotely, not in Columbus and not in Delaware and not in Sunbury. They work remotely in Wisconsin, and they work remotely in California, and they work remotely in Houston, and that means every penny of their salary is now going to be going towards a 2% income tax. Please take that into account. It is not self-employed people only. It is not businesses here. That's a lot of us in this township. And if you aren't aware of that, please educate yourself.
No, we weren't dismissing that. I mean, I was thinking inclusively of that as the target. So thank you for bringing further clarification.
If I can address, since you've directed two comments to Woodard.
Yes.
The reason why I say, I'm not saying to vote no, I don't even vote yes, because I'll be honest with you, I think it's good. But I want to make sure everybody understands. If you don't like it, vote no. That's your choice. That's what I want to make sure you're getting.
Well, and I want to make sure you know that that's 7 more months going under the bridge. If we're just sitting here spinning our wheels on this project, when it doesn't have a hope of passing. Now, I don't know if that's where we're at yet, but that's, I want you to decide that earlier rather than later, because if there's some other way we can go, we need to take it.
I want to address the second part. So, yes, I am still talking with other people.
And there might be some differences since there was the annexation into Sunbury of almost 1,000 acres in Trenton Township in the past couple weeks. Maybe could get some different responses from Galena, from some other, close by partners where we were looking at that. Maybe that's scared and opened the eyes wide of some of our people. If we haven't talked to them lately, let's talk to them again.
I hate the fact that there's a lot of times, people I speak with, I can't say because I agree to a non-disclosure until we get to a point with them. And I'll say it again. I had a meeting today, and I will continue to meet with people that want to talk to us about helping Harlem Township remain as close as we possibly can. I am not shutting the door to anything.
And maybe that should be a larger committee activity as well. Not just,
Well-
Carl, that's not just on your shoulder. I realize you're a trustee, but that's not totally on your shoulders.
You know, I would love to form another huge committee that would commit to the time frame that these folks have committed to. I will stand up here and take volunteers.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, I'm trying to get you all home like at 8:30, I believe that. I heard just two things, just give me a second. The one point, and I think it came up last Thursday, solicit help in areas we need help. So, that's things, yeah. And we need help, okay, like we're all volunteers, right? Some of us are retired and have day jobs, right? I gotta play with my grandkids and shit, so, you know, that's important. But, so that was a good one, and you add that to the idea of parallel path of investigation. So, find a way to bring some other people in some form of parallel path. I'm not gonna stand here as one person and make a commitment, we're gonna do that. But those two pieces resonate with me. So, I'm gonna at least have that conversation with others on the committee. Okay, fire away.
My question is, on the website, it lists 3 examples of townships that have merged with municipalities. None of those examples are even remotely similar to what we're talking about here. So can you provide an example that would be similar that was successful?
There are very few mergers in the state of Ohio. This would be something that's very unique. The closest thing will be the Pataskala Lima Township. And like I said, I have that attorney's name to discuss that with them.
And can you provide your findings on the website when you discuss?
I'll leave that to the communications committee. So yeah.
Things will be provided that can be provided.
You're talking to a lawyer, I'm sure you would know.
Thank you.
Gwen Weicker, State Route 605. I just want to first of all say I have been consistently, not so much in the last 6 months, but I have been attending meetings. And if you've been attending meetings, you know that they do have good intent. My question is, or I guess my request is, please make sure you're also when you're working on this zoning, you're thinking about those smaller lots that Westerville might just say, oh, no, that's a small lot. I have a 2-acre lot. We have chickens. I don't want to lose my chickens. I know that sounds silly, but to go into that further, where can we send our concerns? So in other words, I go home tonight and I realize, oh, I have goats too. Who am I sending those questions to? Because I don't think Molly wants any more messages from me on Facebook.
I did modify the strategic planning committee page on the Harlem Township website. If you scroll down, there might be even a button that takes you down to it, but there's like a form you can fill out that now has a box where you can submit like questions or recommendations or things to consider. I'm not intending that to be for opining of like whether you're in favor or against it. I really would hope that most people would use that as like a, true like
what for us to consider and suggestions more than anything. If you want to opine to the trustees, because those. Because that suggestion box does come to the inbox of the SEC, which I'm the one who monitors, and if I'm flooded with a bunch of opinions, I'm just gonna get stressed out, and like everyone keeps saying, this is volunteer based, I have a full-time job, I have 2 kids, I'm doing the best I can. I'm trying to improve the communications to all you guys. I know we probably need to be sending out more and better communications. I'm working on it. Please, have a little, patience as I try to navigate and figure out what best ways to communicate. You can also just email stc@harlemtpp.com. Those emails are checked on a regular basis. So for now, the website and email are probably the 2 best ways to get suggestions sent in. And we're working on figuring out how to compile them in some kind of like a database or running with like lists and register and things to go through. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
I'm gonna,
Go ahead.
So, there are a couple of, actually quite a few questions on specifics. Such as burning and shooting and hunting, that's covered in the frequently asked questions. There are other specific questions regarding who will do my trash, who will I pay my sewer to, who will maintain my roads? Those are all things, the road maintenance would turn over to the city of Westerville, but who you pay your bills to and all that stuff, we would provide all of that kind of information later on down the road. This is very, very early, again, just wanted to let you know that specifics will come out on all of those different things.
Hi, Karen Crowe, 12046 Bancher Road. I just wanted to make a comment. Molly, I'm getting your emails. They're great. Thank you. If anyone has not seen the video that Carl talked about, Intel on YouTube, it is mind blowing. This chip manufacturing project coming in to Columbus will be the biggest in the United States. It will make Arizona pale in comparison. It opened my eyes to what we're facing. And I just encourage anybody, if you watch that, you will see Betsy Goldstein does facilitate this for the Columbus Rotary Club. And it just blew my mind. I had no idea. And it's not only Intel, like Dick said, Steve, sorry. There's other companies, Coca-Cola, Google, Amazon, coming in, and we are so close. It's not only Harlem, they're looking at, it's expanding Central Ohio, Morrow Township, Knox County, Morrow County. So, I mean, it's just gonna engulf us. And I would rather see Harlem stay intact instead of split up and divided off into partials. So that's my thought. I hope people watch the video because it was really, like I said, and thanks Molly for sending that out.
It's worth watching if Roger comes up. I mean, yeah. As before I said, Intel is just a poster child for everything else, but be aware, and actually this is in that discussion on that tape, is the first phase of Intel is too fast. The land being cleared is for 8. 4 times what the first 2 are, and the first 2, I gave you some examples of the kind of influx of people. And the way Intel does these fabs is they just keep going lickety split down the line, right? They came here because of the seismic, lack of seismic activity. So they have taken this huge swath of land and it's gonna be 8 fabs. So Roger, you're up. Thank you.
Roger Nybarger, 4.5 Green Cook Road. Couple things. I believe we need to be clear in everything we say. If we're not, we need to be held accountable for it, myself included. First thing I want to say, my maternal background is right down here on 605. My mom was raised just north of County Line Road. She's buried over here in the cemetery, and so is my father, and 2/3 of my family. But my dad was born and raised on Jersey Street and Jug Street in Johnstown, which is now being covered up by Intel, Amazon, and all these Microsoft people. I see the development. One thing I know for certain, it's coming our way. We can't stop it. I don't like it. I don't like the plan you put forth. I'll be right up front. I don't like it. But I was in a city council meeting last night in Columbus, well, zoning meeting last night in city of Columbus. And the statement was made, and you would take a pencil mark on a map and draw a little circle at Broad and High, go out 50-mile direction either way. It's the fastest growing area in the whole world. That includes us. We are living in that today. I don't like the plan you put forth. Couple of questions I have. Your timing, your timing. You've been questioned tonight, Steve, about your 120 days. You started out at 60, then you went to 90. In your timing, in your months. On your paperwork here, let me finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I'm not done. On your paperwork here, it says the 120 days period starts on April the 2nd, is that right? You can't start until city of Westerville say okay?
That's my understanding.
That's your understanding. On the back page, August the 2nd is the last day that you can be certified board, turned into the Board of Elections. My count, April 2nd to August 2nd is 120 days. It seems like you're trying to rush this whole thing into a time frame to get it on November ballot. That's what it seems like. My question to you, as well, several people here says, what is the extreme rush? I'm the first one to say we're gonna get real overran by somebody. I can see that. But why are we going into this when you gave us 36 hours before the first meeting notice? That's what really caused a lot of dissension that you're hearing tonight. My dissension is because we 36 hours. It don't seem like that you're giving yourself enough time to even begin to look at the ins and outs. I was also told by one of the members committee that this just put together in the last couple of weeks, and somebody told me the website was put together back in January. Is that true? When was the website put together?
The structure for it was started to be built at that point in time, anticipating a need. But that was in the period that I would say was in our workshop period where we were having discussions with Westerville. So that's correct.
So you've had more time than this couple of weeks on this.
I didn't say we didn't.
No, I'm asking the question, just for clarification.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. I get information from different people. I'm just trying to put it all together the same day.
Yes, sir.
It's tough to do. It's tough to do. But does it not appear like you're forcing the issue to meet a deadline,
Let me bring my attorney in.
I am not an attorney.
But this is, it doesn't add. There's nothing to say. It can't be done.
Correct. So the way it works is, he is correct that you will not start the process until Westerville has its legislation in place, because they're last. So that happens, that starts 120 days ticking, but it's up to 120 days from whatever that date is.
Yeah, okay.
So with your statement, am I correct that you pushing the issue to get it on the November ballot?
There are certain timeframes that Westerville has for their readings of their ordinances and when they have meetings. So we've had to align it with when they have meetings in order to get it on the ballot in November. Yes, the goal is to get it on the ballot in November because of what is coming down the pipe. As far as the sewers getting done and other threats of potential annexation.
I understand, but I believe what you just said echoes what a lot of people said here, that we kind of rushed things.
They can pull it. We don't, that is up to the trustees and up to the city. These timelines have been prepared based upon conversations between those two entities.
I think what we're trying to do is,
We're not, but
here is fully understand what's going on.
we have a lot of work to do to get to where we need to be for these guys to agree on the agreement. Okay? We're gonna know, I think, earlier on in that process, what our trajectory is. And because we're gonna put the foundational elements on the table right at the outset. And I think that's where the bulk of the time and discussion is going to take place. So
Let me say again,
we are not going to make, I won't say that. Go ahead.
I won't force it. Let me say again, I know Harlem Township is gonna get overran by somebody. It's just a matter where we're gonna roll over and play dead and give ourselves away to somewhere we don't want, or allow somebody else to come in. My personal opinion, especially for those in the southern half of the township, my personal opinion didn't do Albany probably the best bet. I live up in the north end of Green Cook Road. I'm 72 years old. I'm not gonna see a whole lot of this unless the good Lord gives me a whole lot more time than I deserve.
Well, I hope you do. You deserve it.
Put up the people at home.
Okay, thank you, Rob.
I want to answer
Go ahead.
a couple of common questions that we are seeing is how is Westerville benefiting? We hear what you're saying, the township is benefiting from, how is Westerville benefiting? The one thing that I have heard from Westerville is that they have a huge concern about other communities surrounding them that do not share their vision. And they don't want to be surrounded by other communities coming in together and having different visions. They want to have a unified approach, which is what we can, our vision is to have a unified approach with the rural character as well.
Okay.
Chad Morrison, 14859 Snellville Road. A quick comment or question. You guys said one of the main reasons when approaching all these other people was a no annexation clause. Westerville didn't give you that, right? They have no intent of doing that because they can't.
Right.
Well, I mean, how's that a fair analysis against the other communities? Westerville's not doing it only because they can't do it. I'd say the same thing. They don't border us.
Well,
So
it's not, it's
it's
really
not
not
direct.
even a topic for discussion with them. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, but
There's no concurrent, but what Carl was saying was that kind of an agreement with other surrounding communities where we have continuous borders, which is where annexation can take place, right? That was one of the first topics about, and it wasn't, when some of these, I wasn't in these discussions, but when we had some of these discussions, it was exploration around some of these tax incentive things. The M word was never uttered to them. Okay, it was just early phases of exploratory as to what might be possible on how we could work with them.
And they might change their mind, correct?
Pardon?
They might have changed their mind realizing merger was an
Well, we
option.
weren't about to lead with that, right? We wanted to see what their behavior would be around annexation.
Well, but it's not fair to hold them accountable for what their behavior would be and not, you can't hold Westville accountable because they can't do it.
I'm gonna speak for myself. Merger was never, ever anything on my mind from day one. It was brought to me by Westerville. And my thought was to have JEDs and to have agreements that would stop development. That is what I've been saying all along.
But merger's never been approached with Sunbury, Galena, or any of these other people.
No, but they have talked about non-annexation agreements and they will not offer those.
How do we know? We haven't been back to them since the merger. You said we haven't even spoken merger, to them, so we don't know that. I mean,
If you merge with another community that doesn't have the ability to provide the services that a Westerville can provide, you would actually end up with an income tax and other things that are not providing those services.
and then real quick, I've just been reading through the state law. If we do this merger vote, and it gets shot down, isn't there a grace period where we pretty much missed our shot? Or did I miss, or did we read into that? It sounds like once it's put on the ballot, if it gets shot down, there's a grace period before you can even approach it again. Do anything? 3 years? Is it 3 years? So if this goes down, this thing you're worried about bringing something through, we're gonna destroy it and we'll be sitting with no possibility for 3 years, correctly?
Westerville.
With Westerville, okay, just Westerville.
That
Okay,
doesn't preclude other stuff.
okay, which we don't want to have, so that.
Yes, sir.
Dennis Harris, 12963 Center Village. Just want to touch on something that she just said about there was no mention of merger until Westerville approached you. You guys told us that you all approached Westerville.
No, I didn't. In fact, in my presentation, if you listen to it, I said the first thing when I went to Westerville was I approached them about a JED, a Joint Economic Development District. They quickly told
No, you
me,
guys told us that.
huh?
You guys told us you approached Westerville about the merger.
No, I did not. You can go back and listen to the recording of this.
Okay, we won't. Anyway, after these two meetings, it's painfully obvious that a majority, if not everybody, is against a merger with Westerville. So as trustees who are elected to hold our best interests in Harlem Township, knowing all this stuff, how do you go forward with signing an intent to merge with Westerville?
I don't want to be combative. But your statement is your statement, and I know there's a lot of sentiment in that direction in this room. I also know there's sentiment, mostly, not to say we have to do it, but to learn more. So let's run the process to see what's possible. So I don't, you're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to influence other people.
I'm just going by what I hear from everybody else here. It's not just my opinion.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I approached Westerville with a Joint Economic Development District proposal. I even say it in the PowerPoint, and it's actually in black and white in the PowerPoint.
It says, yeah, it says it right here.
For a Joint Economic Development District.
Okay.
And then, so why couldn't we just have a vote on whether or not you all proceed with a intent to
Well,
sign?
that is not the way the process works.
So that's a no, it's all up to you all.
No, it's not.
Well, it is.
We have advanced an idea to the trustees. The trustees have taken it under consideration. The trustees will vote on March 20th whether to advance that consideration into a formal discussion with Westerville after they have their third meeting on April 2nd. That will start the clock on the negotiation. But along the way, as I said, if we determine that we can't get to the right place on the foundational elements, I suspect that things are going to slow down substantially. So I think it would be short-sighted not to get to the point of negotiating. At that point, we might still advance it if we have a vision that we think it makes sense for the majority of Harlem Township. And at that point, you guys will have the final say come November. So, there's kind of like a multi-check process. But I think it's premature to throw in the towel at this point in time.
And then I got one other question. Is there anybody on the board in Harlem Township that has the opportunity to work with the city of Westerville once this merger happens?
Could you say, I couldn't hear you the last one.
Is there anybody on the Harlem Township board that has been offered positions with the city of Westerville once this merger goes through?
No. No.
So urgency.
Well, no. No, I was just thinking about this one, but no.
You were just saying what?
No, I was just second guessing that answer, but I'm just.
How do you-
No,
what's
there's
the
no
second
one,
guess?
because we have not gotten to the point where that could have even taken.
Has it been discussed with anybody?
No.
I don't understand why you'd second guess that. It's a yes or no answer.
We have some ideas of people who are currently employed in, well, first of all, the fire department. And so if you wanna, will the fire department be employed?
No, I'm talking about people involved in this merger.
No, but one of the things we've said all along, that Harlem Township Fire Department stays in that. Our fire department stays in the EMS, stays in that. That our maintenance department, if our maintenance people want to, they stay in that. So, but as far as this committee or anything else, no. Okay.
The urgency and sewer seem to be a common theme with the reason for moving forward with this. Is there a particular landowner, corporation, or business that has put pressure on the committee, the trustees, or Westerville to get this done in such a fast manner?
No.
No, if you look at the land transfers though, you will see land that transfers, and as soon as you see lands transferring and you see sewer coming, you know there's urgency.
There is no exterior pressure today, other than the ones that we are talking about ourselves, that we've been over multiple times, but no.
But back to what I said. Do we wait until it's on our doorstep?
Right, but no one has approached or put pressure on.
No.
No.
Angie Perry, 12963 Center Village Road. Westerville does not have any right to service Harlem Township with sewer and water. So I don't understand why they would be the savior for Harlem Township. The fact is that if the merger were to go through, Westerville would have to newly negotiate with Columbus for the rights to service Harlem Township with sewer. Columbus would certainly want some piece of that. The rights to service Harlem Township with sewer belong to Delaware County. So I don't understand how Westerville has any role in saving Harlem Township for sewer.
It doesn't. That's a misunderstanding.
Well,
Sewer is not part of the discussion.
We
That
talked
is
a lot about
strictly-
sewer here.
Well, people have been asking about sewer. We know sewer is coming, you're drilling the big hole.
Okay,
So sewer is not
understood.
influenced by this discussion in Westerville.
So the things are getting very blurry for people, and we need to be crystal clear in our communications. I'm happy to volunteer and help you with communications. I'm happy to chase down answers. I'm available. So I would be happy for that. Thank you. The one thing, and just last comment, if you don't help us get on board with you as trustees, and Steve, whatever role you're playing here too, and Holly, you as well, because you have a company that I'm sure that you would like to have accreditations and things that are positives about your company. And I can tell you right now, I'm not feeling that. So if you want us to get on board as residents, then what we need help with is to understand the facts. We need transparency. And if we vote this down in November, and we will, if something doesn't change, the fast track you have us on isn't gonna work. If we vote this down in November, you shot that one dead for 3 years. You just told us that. So it would behoove everybody here to make sure that we understand all the surrounding community options. And so if Westerville is the right answer, that you have our buy-in, because right now you're not getting it.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna call the ball.
Last
You're
but
it.
not least.
Step right up.
Yeah, okay. So first, I just want to take issue with something that you had said, that Westerville and Harlem Township share. Westerville and Harlem Township share the same vision. I don't think that that's the case. I mean, that is the whole crux of why we're here, and you made that as one of your talking points. And I would like to add that the MQ&A is written by people who have a narrative and agenda to push. So be careful what you read. I'm not saying I'm for or against what's happening, but I'm saying I need to buy it. I need to buy it. Thank you there.
I'll point out that the FAQs were co-written.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying,
Well, I'm telling
the,
you.
the
that
author,
it
the
was not-
authors of it were, they have an agenda to put and be careful what you read, because some of it may or may not be true, just like division. Okay, so my next point is, I'm glad Molly's getting help, because she obviously needs it, everybody else is pitching in to help. My third point is taxes again. Okay, I lived in Westerville for 14 years. I left, came to Harlem Township because I got tired of seeing the tax increases. There's a tax that is called retail. I don't know if the people are aware of it or not, but as a resident of Westerville, you pay an additional tax called the regional income tax.
That is the 2% income tax.
That is, okay, I want
Yes.
to make sure. All right,
They just use RETA as their administrator of their income.
Right, but that's what it is.
okay. I'm done.
Okay, well, go ahead.
So we've lumped them into categories. We're not sitting here reading every single.
No, but she meant the other hand,
I know.
No.
Okay. Is there one in particular, just?
Can you, here, wait, hold on.
Here, hang on a
Wait.
second.
Oh. No, well, I'm sorry, my name is. Go ahead.
I'm gonna apologize, there's two of them, and they are two different people. One is, can you please share with us the criteria that you asked those other organizations, those other property owners, those other townships, whatever, cities, whoever you approach, can you please share with us that criteria? And also then the, negotiating board, how will those people be picked? Will it be volunteers? Will we, work together to pick the negotiating committee to go into negotiations with Westerville?
Yeah, so but I did lump that second question in because the question was asked of who's on the negotiating team that has not been determined. And so that will have to, I will leave it to you of who you think might be, but, or if we even have any idea tonight, but it has not been determined at this point in time. Yeah, we're gonna provide that.
Oh, yeah, well, that's been asked a couple of times. Well, we said that we will come back and we will give you that information. We're not gonna get into that. But we will do that. Well, it's not there at this moment, but you will be getting it. Yes, it will. Well, I'm doing the walkabout. What the heck? Go ahead.
And I don't have cable, and I don't drive. So are you guys gonna do mailers and stuff that we can get more information? I have no cable, no internet access. Well, I have it on my phone.
Well,
And so,
documents.
we don't, yeah, I've read on there, but I mean, about the meetings and some things on the site. Well,
Hey, Steve, I don't have a mic, but we will have to do mailers at some point, at what frequency and like what.
I'm sorry.
I can't answer the specifics, but we know we're gonna have to send out broad communications, that's not just email and website.
Okay.
So, yes, thank you.
Carl?
Well, the crowd should be small when it's time to move on. Thanks everybody for being here. This is not gonna be an easy discussion topic, I know that. I knew this when I first sat and agreed to even consider it. I've stated in the past, and I'll state it again. I want to make sure that everybody understands, it's all the facts, and then you vote. It's been suggested, we've been asked, I shouldn't say suggested, would we remove this from the ballot? I don't think that's fair to the public. I do not believe in taking the power of decisions away from the people. I know I got chastised a little bit for making my comments about vote no. You do what your heart and your mind leads you to do. And whatever it is, at the end, I respect it, and I hope you respect what our efforts have been to try to present something. Other than that, we will continue to move forward. We will try to get answers. We will try to produce efficient answers for people to listen, to have. There are going to be questions that we are not going to be able to answer. There's things, I know there's non-disclosure things that we had to agree to when we talked to certain people. I don't like those, but my hands are tied. We talked. That's all I can say. Thank you again.
I just have one quick question.
Oh,
It
sure.
was on the voting, and it just made me think. So is Westerville also gonna be voting on this? So it'll be, so, if they go,
It'll be independent.
Okay.
Harlem Township will vote yes or no. The question was about the vote and the way the voting will work. If it gets to that point, Harlem Township will vote yes or no for Harlem Township. Westerville will vote yes or no for Westerville.
so if we
If
vote,
they vote yes and we vote no, it's done. If we vote yes and they vote no, it's done. It has,
but independently, yeah, so that's what I mean.
Fif-
Because that's what I'm thinking.
51.
They have a larger population, and if they vote yes,
No,
that doesn't
no,
mean
no,
that
no.
we're screwed.
No, 51% in both of them.
and you know, there's a possibility. I mean, I know a large portion of people said it's not gonna pass here, you know, maybe it won't. But again, there's a possibility that we vote yes and they vote no. I don't know. If I have that crystal ball, I could know.
I think we've solved the questions that we're gonna solve tonight. I appreciate your patience, 9:18, that's a pretty long run. Thanks for hanging with us, thank you for the questions, and we'll be back to you as soon as we can, thank you.